Hey, welcome to the broadcast. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I appreciate you. I appreciate you supporting the channel the way that you do. So I just want to thank you in advance for all the love, for the likes, for the comments, for the tags, for all the shares, and all the subscribers. Shout out to all the subscribers that have recently joined the channel. That's STM, that's Spreading Truth Ministry. Shout out to you, applause to you, and also for those that are following me also on my Dr. Keisha channel on YouTube. Shout out to you. Shout out to you. It is greatly appreciated. We want to reach our goal, and it's a small one in comparison to all of these other channels. 500, y'all. That's the goal. We want to achieve that goal before July. That is the goal. It's a small one, and I believe that we can do it. Amen. We can do all things through Christ that strengthens us. So I just wanted to say, number one, thank you so much for watching. And you can be a blessing. You can be a blessing to this ministry for those that are watching on YouTube and those that, don't necessarily follow us on Facebook, but you're out there in the YouTube streets and you're like, listen, we want to be a blessing to this woman of God. She has been serving us since 2009. Come on, somebody. She's been serving us. She's been giving us content. When she gives us content, I know y'all, we working on that consistency. But I've been doing it though. I've been consistent, but been working and grinding and building and building and building. And you want to be a blessing. So the information is there for those that desire it. We appreciate you. All right. We appreciate you tuning in on our Saturday online Bible study. Now, listen, we are in one of my favorite books of the Bible. You guessed it. If you haven't already guessed it, let me give you a hint. Boom. Exodus. Yes. This is my Exodus. Yes, indeed. It truly is. And I'm excited because we are in chapter 16. You know what's amazing? We have been in revival, like literally, we have been in revival, and God has just been blessing us. I mean, immensely, truly, truly blessing us, right? And I just want to say, I just appreciate the Father. I appreciate what He's doing, and but I've been tired. I've been exhausted. Sharing or hosting or edifying the body. So it's. Listen, we've been doing this for now 24 days. We have 5 more days to go, and we really have been pressing in the presence of the Lord. So I don't know if you're hearing me today in this moment. You're like, yeah, she live. Yeah, I'm all the way live. I'm rested. And I just want to say praises be to God because your girl was tired. I ain't even gonna lie, just exhausted. But I'm very grateful and I'm very thankful and appreciative for God just allowing me to rest in Him. I had my clock set. I said, listen, we're going to go in. Yes, we were in early this morning at 6 o'clock. I didn't get in the bed till like about an hour or and a half, maybe some change before 6 a.m. So we got up and we prayed through. Okay, somebody, yes. And then we came in at 9 and facilitated a whole testimony service. Glory to God online and stuff like that. So your girl was tired, did some counseling the night before. Like, I'm human, right? I'm only human. I'm only human. Yeah. And so I said, you know what? Let me lay it down. Let me take a nap. Let me set my clock. And so I did that. And yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. Yeah, we did that. But your girl didn't wake up. When I woke up, I was so tired, I went back to sleep. So your body knows what it needs. You know what I mean? That's the truth. Your body knows what it needs. And so we just gonna let that be that. And I'm grateful because we can't wear ourselves out. We can't wear ourselves thin, right? We can't pour out of an empty cup. We got to pour out the overflow. So you got to listen, especially at the age that I'm at. I'm not too old. I'm not young either. You know what I mean? And so I have to be mindful that I have to give my body what it needs. And it needs plenty of rest, plenty of agua. I got agua right by my side. Shout out to water. Mm. All right. So we are ready to go. So you should find me. You will find me, and you should find me in Exodus. All right, let me just highlight that only in Exodus, the 16th chapter. In the prior chapters, let me make sure that we are all on the same page. Let me make sure that I can get to it. All right, so In the prior chapters, right, which is chapter 15, it talks about the song of Moses. Remember, we talked about the tambourine? I meant to get my tambourine too, because I wanted to play it a little bit. But we talked about the song of Moses, and we talked about how Miriam was introduced. She came on the scene, right? So all this time we didn't hear about Miriam since she was young. And so now we have her featured in chapter 15, and her carrying on and adding to the song with her timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out dancing before the Lord and playing their tambourines. Amen, amen. And so she added, she sung unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he drowned into the sea. So my girl Miriam, she added her penmanship and her inspiration, her prophetic flow. She was noted as a prophetess. She added to the song, amen, and she concluded it. And then we have God providing water, okay? And then we have also a mention of again, now they're on this journey, the first mention of murmur, okay? The first mention of murmur of the people, okay? So this is one of many times we're going to take note of the people making a complaint, all right, having a complaint, things not, being provided, and them being unhappy with Moses, aka God's representative, and also not happy with God. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we try to throw off on the pastor or throw off on a leader, if God is the one that's inspiring what is being said, or if God is the one that's leading what is being done, then the people, even though we take it out on the representation, we take it out on the leaders, we take it out on the mouthpiece, we take it out on the vessels. We're really, really angry with God. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, especially if the information came from the Lord, but we take it out on people. So, but the Lord knows and He understands exactly, who we're upset with, and for the most part, it's not the leader. For the most part, it's generally God, and we just take it out on the leadership. Now, that's not to say that people don't have legitimate concerns, you know what I mean, or alts against their leaders, because sometimes the leader, just like the members, just like the people, can be in their flesh. So let's be clear, and I'm a firm believer that we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. No matter if you're in leadership, it doesn't matter what office you hold, position you play, what your mandate is. It really doesn't matter what your assignment is. We're all human beings. We just have more responsibilities. If we're leaders, then we have more of a responsibility to oversee people. When we're in the people business, we're in the business of leading, imparting, counseling, nurturing, building up, edifying, and also correcting. We're in the business of development, right? Personal development, spiritual development. We're in the business of development. But and however, we're still very much human. And so therefore, yeah, we will have missteps. There will be mishaps. There will be miscommunications, because by nature we are flawed. And so we always have to keep that in mind when we're dealing with leaders, no matter how fabulous and phenomenal they may be. They will err. Human is error. To error is, what is it? To error is human, right? To error is human. So making mistakes is just par for the course. It's just something that we do. To me, it's not necessarily about the mistakes per se. It's really about what we do, right? When things come up, when things happen, how do we handle it? How do we manage it is the real question. It's not the mistake itself, because guess what? Mistakes are going to happen. We're going to say something, do something, feel something, think something that we shouldn't, that we ought not to. So, it's just like, it just comes with the territory, man, And so if we just really understand that, and then focus on how can we make this good? How can we make this right? You know what I'm saying? How can we reconcile? Let that be the focus. Yes, people do need to acknowledge what they've done. You know what I'm saying? Their honesty. You know what I'm saying? That you must have integrity in all things and all those things. And we should hold each other accountable. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, after all of that is said and done, after the confession, right? And all those things, what can we do to make this right? You know what I'm saying? What can I do to make forgiving me easier? That is a real question, because yeah, for some people, it is hard for them to forgive. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I feel a moment here. And so I'm going to expound upon it. Yeah, it's hard, especially depending on what it is that you've done. to somebody, it may be difficult for them to forgive you. So the question then becomes, how can I reconcile this? What can I do to make you feel better? What can I do to make it easier to forgive me? Those should be the questions, especially if you're the one that did the violation, right? Right. If you're the one that's guilty, and so yeah, so you should be willing to make amends, right? And do what it takes. That's reasonable. And I think that that's fair, right? That's absolutely fair. And I believe that you would want to say, all right, so I felt led to just really, expound upon that, because yes, we're leaders. We should honor them. Yes, they're vessels and they should be honored as vessels, and some even deserving of double honor. But at the same time, they're also human. And so when we see human tendencies and flaws, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it depends on what it is, but if it's something that needs to be addressed, then by all means, regardless of if they're the leader or not, it should be addressed. But in this case, the people were upset with Moses, and they really did not have. I can understand the concern, but they did not have a justified reason up until this point. They just had to wait. So it's almost like they're being conditioned during this process. God is now having them in the wilderness, and now he's conditioning them. Now he's teaching them. Now he's showing them who he is and all of his sides. Like, now he's introducing himself as the provider, right? Jehovah Jireh, the God that provides. And so when we're learning those lessons, when we're experiencing God in that way, there has to be moments by which we have a need in order for him to supply. And so I think that that can be uncomfortable for us as a people, right? Having that lack in that moment. It could be a momentary lack. It could be there's some time, tacked onto that. But at the end of the day, we have to trust God enough to know that if he was able to do that, if he did it before and all the other things that he did prior up until this point, right? God has done marvelous things. I mean, you're talking about miracles, spectacles, signs, wonders. Woo, woo. God did that. So those things should be imprinted upon their memory. So if nothing else, I said, what is it? If anything else, the thought should have been, if God delivered us out of 400 years of bondage, surely he can supply agua, right? Surely he can give us water. I think he can do that. And he did that. And so now they're hungry. And so here we are. So when we're looking at the text, when we're looking at the chapters, you know me, when we're doing our Bible study, I do like to use the Blue Letter Bible app. And if you happen to have a Strong's Concordance, it can do the same thing. So if you have a book, which is the Strong's very large book at home, you can use this and it will do the exact same thing. But I just feel like, let's work smarter, right? And not harder. But if you happen to have the Strong's, you can do exactly what the app is doing. You can find the word, and then you can find exactly where the word is located. You can find the scripture, the actual verse, and then you can read it for context. Remember, every time you read something and you're trying to get an understanding of the text, you have to read it for context. You have to understand what's going on, right? You have to understand a little bit of background. All right, so we are in chapter 16. And again, we're going to just give you, a little bit of background. We're going to give you the when, we're going to give you the characters and the where. So right now, we are, in terms of when, we are at about the upper 1700s of BC. All right, we have it around that time frame. Yes, so we have about, what is it, 1491 BC is around about the time frame. The events of Exodus 16, this is the general overview. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel, but I find really good websites that have a good summary and a good solid summary that can provide some specific details as a summary to the chapters that we read. But it says here that the events of Exodus 16 occurred 1 month after Exodus 16 verse 1. All right, so we're in Exodus 16. It occurred 1 month after the events of 1 month after the events that occurred. All right, so all the hype, all the stuff that God did, the marvelous works, bringing them out, it was 1 month after that. Now we have the characters. Of course, the Israelites are being featured, also known as the Hebrews. They're the descendants of Jacob. We know Jacob to be the son of Isaac, Isaac to be the son of Abraham. All right, and then it's often said Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? The patriarchs. So he is the grandson of Abraham. All right. And so this is his family. And God, remember, God changed Jacob's name to Israel. And so that's why they are referred to as the Israelites. All right. They're the Israelites, though they have their own names, like each and every one of them. And also they've been organized according to tribes, right? So all the sons are the heads of the tribes. And he had 12 sons. All right. And so there's all the tribes there. um yeah, so there's all the tribes and the 12 sons, and so, and the 12 sons have all of these children. There's an expansion. um okay, yeah, so the 12 sons, again, they multiply, had all these babies, and so now we have uh okay, and now we have the nation, right? Now we have the people now. And then the children of Israel came out of Egypt, and then there were people that came out with them. So there's a very large people that are now in this wilderness experiencing exactly what it is we're about to discuss in just a few moments. Then we have Moses, right? Moses is of the obviously of this family as well, even though he grew up in the house of Pharaoh. Remember, his family, there was an edict that was put out for the males to be killed. And so Moses's mother and father and their family decided to put him in a basket in the Nile River, and he floated up towards Pharaoh's house, and the daughter of Pharaoh saw him and wanted to take him in. So he was raised amongst Pharaoh, amongst the family. He did not experience slavery like his people did. All right. God set him apart. He was very much exposed to the Egyptian culture because he was raised as an Egyptian. But yet God had a purpose, had a plan to use Moses to bring his people out. All right. And so then there's Aaron. Aaron also is a leader as well. That's Moses' brother. And so, and then there's Miriam. We God highlighted Miriam in chapter 15. All right, and so there's Miriam. They had 3 children. All right, and so Aaron was the mouthpiece for Moses, just like Moses was the mouthpiece for God. Aaron was Moses's mouthpiece, and so he helped him to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. Now, in terms of where, there is no exact location in the Bible, but it's shortly after the crossing of the Red Sea. God led the Hebrews to the Red Sea, to Mara, and then to Elam. Leaving Elam, they went into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai. So right now they're in the wilderness, somewhere in the wilderness of Sin. All right. So I think we are ready to hear the reading of the word. So let's go to chapter 16. All right, let's go here. Exodus. I'm sorry, y'all. Preparation. I had everything prepared but my phone so that I can have it read to you. And that's another resource that I like about this, the mere fact that you can have it actually read to you and you can just follow along, that can help you in a whole lot of ways. It'll absolutely bless you, especially if you're having trouble like pronouncing words and things of that nature. Yeah, it will definitely bless you like real good, having that read to you, and then you can just follow along. All right. So I'm going to do the KJV narration, and I think we're ready to go. Are we ready to read? I think we're ready to go, to make sure you see what I see and I see what you see. All right, let's go. Oh, the headers. Let's go through the headers. So we have the Lord providing manna as a first. We have the Lord provides meat as the second header. And then we have the Sabbath observed. And then that's that. All right. So those are the headers. God is going to provide manna. God's going to provide meat. And then they're going to have to observe the Sabbath. All right. Now, this is after them now being reacquainted with God, his laws, his judgments, and his statutes. They're being reacquainted with how God is moving and the holiness of God and what is required of them. They're being reacquainted. So we're going to see some trial and error here, but they're being reacquainted. Let me see. Hold up just a moment. right, let me see if I can. All right, here we go.
Chapter 16. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger.
Okay, let's pause for just a moment. We mentioned something about it being a month after they left. Okay, so as a confirmation to that, if you go to verse 1, it says maybe towards the end or so, the 15th day of the second month. So remember, Abib is the beginning of months, right, unto the people of God. So here it literally references the time frame by which they left. That we can measure exactly how long it's been since they left Egypt. And here it says it was the second month after their departure. And it also references that it was on the 15th day. So that lets me know, and it does confirm, because I know there are a lot of, with some folks, there's some controversy in regards to what day they left. Some people have the Israelites leaving Egypt on the night part of the 14th day. Some people have it more like on the day part of the 14th day. But here it's the 15th day of the second month, which means if it's a month, right, they left on the 15th day. So on the 14th day, they were still in Egypt, being spared, right, from that last plague. And then they did not leave until the 15th month. We know, according to the scriptures, that the evening and the morning was the first day, which means that all days begin with night. Okay, a day constitutes the evening, which is night, and then the morning, which is day. But the day begins at night, not as we perceive it in this time, where we translate day to mean day or after midnight, or some folks when you get up in the morning, but the day is already half spent when you wake up in the morning. So again, it begins at night and it ends as it approaches. So when he says the 15 days when they left, right, that's the 15th day of Abib when they left. So here is the second month. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And also, if it moved forward, right, to the second verse, it says, and the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. So this is the first reference of them murmuring in the wilderness. In truth, if we go back, they were complaining when they were in Egypt too. Because remember, when things begin to get a little bit hard for them, remember when Pharaoh started taking it out on them, the fact that Moses and Aaron was coming and telling them as representatives of the Lord that he has to let the people go, right? He didn't like that. So of course he made it harder for them. He made it difficult. And of course the Israelites didn't like that. So they complained about it. So this is not the first time that they've complained as a group, as a people group. No. But this is the first time that there's a mention of them murmuring in the wilderness. All right. So make a note of that, because there's going to be plenty of that going on. And also, again, just like I forestated, listen, they experience God like no other people, like no other nation experienced God. And it was literally like a month ago. So it wasn't too far ago that God did these amazing things for them, you know, and when and we're guilty. Like God could literally just did something an hour ago, and then an hour later, if we're being challenged, it's like, oh, woe is me. What am I going to do? We do the exact same thing. So when we look at these passages, when we search through these scriptures and we're reading them, we're interpreting them, and we're understanding the context of it, let's not take away, oh, look at them, they're bad people. No. People in general have a very short attention span. We have a selective memory, and we magnify things, things we should not ought to magnify, and so therefore we're very much like the children of Israel. We're very much like our ancestors. So I just wanted to make a note of that, because oftentimes it's an us against them type mentality when we read the text, when we read about this history and these stories. But you have to look and be honest and really check for the similarities in the human nature and the human experience. So they were having a human experience, and then you have to also consider their psychological state. They were enslaved for 400 years, like many generations of people that were enslaved. 400 years, 4 centuries. That's a very long time. So these people have been indoctrinated. These people have been manipulated. You know what I'm saying? They've been programmed. So a month ain't gonna. It just, they need more. They need no more. So we're going to understand it better, why God allowed them to wander a little bit longer, even though it did not take 40 years to arrive to their destination. But God allowed them to go in circles because they had to go through that process. And again, when you consider your own situation, some of us, if God allowed us to arrive to our destination according to the estimation of arrival, like naturally, without any hindrances, without any hiccups, without any, going in circles or getting lost, many of us wouldn't be prepared to get to that place, to that destination, because we carry so much baggage, just like they did. We have a certain type of mentality, just like they did, that if we arrived, we wouldn't even appreciate it, just like they're not appreciating the things that God has done for them. The mere fact that in the prior chapter, God made water come out of, he literally cleaned up the water system in the prior chapter. Waters that were bitter were no longer bitter. That was yet another miracle that was performed in the prior chapter. Now we're here, and the people are now complaining. Okay, so they walk through it, and then they go into the specific complaint or concern. Would God we had died in the hand of the Lord, in the hand of the Egyptian, by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt. Now they're saying, I wish I was dead. You see what I'm saying? And this is us. Literally, God could have done something yesterday, powerful, profound, life altering, right? Miracle, eyes open. Wow, we blown away. In the moment, we're cheering, we're happy, we're excited. We trust God, we love Him so. Then the next minute, oh, I wish God would just take me. I can't take this. You know what I'm saying? We're guilty. If you can't say amen, please say ouch. We are just as guilty. Something comes up, we don't have no measure of faith for that situation. We forgot about all the prior experiences, all the prior references of what God can do. We forget all about that. Now we have this new thing that we're facing. Now we're going to have to increase in our faith in this area and that area. And so God allows us to go through. So they wish that they would have died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt. And then it says that when we sat by the flesh pots, now they're reminiscing as if it was a good time. And that's what we do when we're in bondage, because that's a safe place. That's a place of familiarity. That's a place of comfort. Stagnation. That's a place that is common. That's a place that we know. That we're, again, that familiarity that's there. It's safe because it's familiar, because we know it. Again, that whole mentality of the devil that we know. We would rather be with the devil that we know than the devil that we don't know. And God is not nowhere near a devil, but their circumstances is adversarial to them, right? So they would rather go back to the land and the place of bondage that they were familiar with and know the ins and outs. They know how not to walk. Even though they're walking on eggshells, they know what to do not to get punished, and what to say, and know how to kowtow, and how to, to flatter with the lips, and how to, maybe get favor and get some privileges every now and then, even in their bondage. But it's comfortable, and they know it, and they know the ins and out of it because they've been in it for 400 years. And now we're in this place that we're not familiar with. Now we're in this area, in this territory, when we're having to lean on this great, big, wonderful God. Do we trust Him? Will He really take care of us? We seen what He was capable of doing a month ago, but here we are, and we're faced with having to really lean in and depend on Him and Him alone to satisfy our needs. I don't know if I could do that. And that's where some of us are right now. If we really think about it, if we really consider the situation that we're in, our situation is set up so that only God can do it. Like for real, like only God can do it. That's how our situation is set up, that only He can bring us through. But we have to understand, once we come to know God, we know that God don't play those types of games. He doesn't play those type of games. He's not like man, right? That he should lie. No, he's not like the enemy where he's going to entice you and deceive you and trick you. That's not the God that we serve. But these people are getting reacquainted with the God of their fathers because they don't know him culturally. They identify with him culturally. But when it comes to relational, when it comes to having a relationship, God is as foreign as the idols that they once had to tend to. Because you best believe that these people were immersed in the Egyptian culture and they were exposed to their polytheism. They were exposed to multiple religions and faiths, idols and deities. They participated even in their worships while they tried to maintain their integrity the best they could in a land that did not belong to them, as still considered strangers, but now forced into servitude. So, yes, they did bend. Then, yes, they did compromise for the sake of survival, because that's what you do when you are in captivity. You do what you got to do to survive. Okay. So they learned that mentality. And so we're here. And they're reminiscing about when they had stuff, when stuff was provided and they didn't necessarily had to ask. You know, they're reminiscing about what they would probably consider good times, right? The flesh pots and the bread and to the full. And but yet you brought us here to this wilderness to kill us with hunger. It's like, yeah, they sound pretty ungrateful. But the truth of the matter is that they were not acquainted with the God of their fathers, of their forefathers. They were not as acquainted with him. And so they dealt with him accordingly. So they were not sure what God would do with them. And so because they did not have that relationship build up, nor did they have the right measure of faith. So that's exactly where they are. So now we're in verse 4.
Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no.
Now, mind you,
and it shall come to pass that
pause. Take into consideration, God didn't chastise them in that moment. See, again, we have to understand the all-knowingness of God. Like he understood, he overstood where they were mentally and emotionally, right? He understood where they were, and they just weren't there yet. They weren't there yet. They weren't there. That's why they had to go through their process. So instead of God raining fire on them and checking them immediately, the moment they first murmured and complained, he began to provide Moses with a solution. So here we have it where he says this, and listen, they're hungry, they're murmuring, they're complaining. Let me be their sustainer. Let me provide for them, right? I will rain bread from heaven for you. And the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove. Now I'm going to show you. I know y'all really, this is a lot. This is a lot, having to solely depend upon me. That's where we are right now. Some of us are there where we are having to solely depend on Yahweh. Okay, it's a lot. So I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to prove them, right? I'm going to see whether they're going to do what I say or not, whether they're going to walk in my law or not. So now it's a testing time. They've saw enough, they've experienced enough. Now it's time to see where they truly are when it comes to their faith, when it comes to their relationship with God. You know what I mean? And their appreciation for who he is. And it says, and it come to pass that on the sixth day.
On the sixth day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, At even, then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt. And in the morning, then ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we, that ye murmur against us? And Moses said, This shall be, when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. And Moses spake unto Aaron, Say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, Come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmurings. And it came to pass, as Aaron spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, At even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. And it came to pass that at even the quails came up, and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat.
All right. So let's go back a little bit. Now, again, we talked a little bit about that prior, that God addressed the murmuring. And we also discussed that it wasn't, this Moses was reiterating, like, you weren't complaining about me, because essentially, listen, I'm not the one that led you out here. I'm with y'all. I'm listen, I'm going along with the ride along with you. I'm just taking some liberties here. I'm going along also for this ride with you all. I'm going along with it too. I'm following suit to you. I'm exhibiting faith in this walk too. I'm with you. I'm just simply conveying what has been shared to me to you, right? And so he's saying, listen, I'm not the one that you're complaining about. You're complaining about God, and God has heard you. And so God spake to that again, reinforcing the fact that he heard the complaining. And as a result, he's going to provide for them. Not only is he going to provide manna, but he also said that he would provide meat. And the meat was in a form of quail. So I don't know if you ever had quail or not, but it's a good bird. Okay, tasty. All right. So quails are small, but they're cute, but they're tasty. Okay. So God provided the quail for them. And then he also provided the manna for them. Now, what's interesting about the manna, again, it says, and the children of Israel saw it, and they said, the one is the other two, it is manna. Again, they're not knowing what manna is, but based upon what is described, it says manna means what it is. What is it? What is it? Um, it says manna is so called the question. It's so called from the question about it. So basically, the word manna means what is it? Because they did not know exactly what it was, they referred to it as manna. Okay. And again, it is also described to be the bread from heaven. Okay. And it's also described to be bread. All right. But they refer to it as manna, for whence not what it was, and they didn't know what it was. And Moses said unto them that this is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat. So manna, what is it? Bread. All right. Again, that's the word for it. It's transliterated to mean what is it? They didn't know what it was. All right. But when they tasted it, they loved it. All right. So, but yet he's saying God provided bread. Now he provided meat, and God provided bread. And then now he's going to give them instructions concerning that which he is providing. Now, again, there's a reason why they just can't just eat, because again, they're being proven, right? They're being tested. So they just can't just eat it, whatever. God is going to give them specific instructions in terms of how he's going to divvy this, how they're going to, move forward when it comes to the supplying of their needs. All right, let's listen.
This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man, according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tents. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered, some more, some less.
Again, it's all according to their eating, according to every man, an omer for every man. All right, according to the number of the people that are residing within the tents, right? The tabernacles. So we're going to look up the word omer, the transliteration of the word omer. All right, so basically it's a dry measure of 1/10 ephod, about a sheave. Okay, so omer is a dry measure of 1/10 of an ephod, or a heave, or it could also be transliterated to be a heap. To Yeah, a heap or dry measure, a certain amount, a proper measure. All right, heaf. So just, again, a lot of us don't know again what all of these biblical terms mean, but it gives you some type of reference that there is a measurement to what it is that they're supposed to get per household. All right. All right.
And when they did meet it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. And Moses said, Let no man leave of it till the morning.
Okay, so again, these are the specs. These are the specifications. These are the requirements. This is the order. This is what God is saying that they have to do. You have to gather again per person, whatever is appropriate, right? And omer, in terms of the amount or the size of it, they were supposed to eat what they can eat, and that's it. And then he says that nothing should be left in the morning. Nothing should be left over when you eat your appropriate amount for you, and your families are eating what is appropriate for them. Nothing should be left over until the morning. All right, let's listen.
Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was wroth with them.
Okay, so it's interesting that, again, they didn't listen. Again, God said that he was going to prove them, right? So they didn't listen. He told them not to leave it until the morning. Guess what? They did it anyway. And then what happened? The bread, that they left in the morning, it bred worms. It began to stink. All right, their homes or what have you. And so, of course, Moses was angry with them. Of course, he was wroth with them, right? Because God told them not to. And here we go. People just stepping over lines. Again, doing what we want to do. Just, I'm gonna try it my way. I'm gonna see for myself. Like, just, I'm gonna see what happens if I do it anyway. Like, that's the attitude, that's the mentality. So God is literally showing Moses and showing the people where they are when it comes to their trust. And it could potentially make them sick too, because again, they had no way of really storing these things. You know what I'm saying? They were in temporary dwelling places. They were in tabernacles, booths, tents, right? So they didn't have the right kind of situation to store anything. So God will have to literally feed them every day. And he told them what they could gather. And then he gave them special grace. And we're going to read that in just a few moments. But on a regular day, they were not to leave something until the morning. Everything was supposed to be eaten in its day. And then when you get to the sixth day, God's going to give further instructions on what to do in regards to the seventh day in just a moment. But what's crucial here is that, again, following instructions will keep you from harm. What if somebody would have ate it? They potentially may have gotten sick. You know what I'm saying? Thinking that it's okay, again, not following instructions. So When we don't follow instructions, we can harm ourselves and our family. Here we go again. We had talked about that. I believe we shared, we're experiencing our revival for the month of February. And we were talking about Joshua, and we were talking about how God specifically told them not to take any of the idols, right? When they lost the battle of Ai, because they took the idols from Jericho. And the guy told them, like, don't touch the eyes. He told them not to. He told them when they could pursue, when they could take things and when they could not. And he gave them instructions in the prior battle. And he told them, don't touch, don't take nothing home, don't put that in your right? So again, then we have this one individual that decided to take them anyway and hide them. And it put them in a peculiar situation by which they end up losing the first battle of Ai, right? So the same thing. And then who suffered? Some people died in that battle of Ai. And as a result, just like God said he would, if you do that, you're going to defile the whole nation. You're going to defile your family. You're going to defile your tribe. And that's what they did. And so they had to suffer the consequences. So here we go. The people still not listening, stepping over lines. All right, let's continue to read on. Lord, help us today.
And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating, and when the sun waxed hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said unto them, This is that which the Lord hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today, and seethe that ye will seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up till the morning, as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. And Moses said, Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field. 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the 7th day for to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said unto Moses, How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws?
Again, here we go. Another violation. God provided in one day, which was the 6th day, double, so that they did not have to go out on the 7th day. They were not permitted to go out because it was the Sabbath. Remember, when we get to Exodus, the 20th chapter, where it says to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy, the Sabbath day was already established since creation. All right. And so they were observing the 7th day since creation. Okay. So they were familiar with that. But again, these were people that were in bondage for 700 years. So now they're having to be retaught, re-instructed, retested, reproven, poured into, reprogrammed, redirected. All right. Because they were not accustomed to having to do these things that their forefathers did, the things that God had instructed for them to do, that made them be the peculiar people that they are, that made them to stand out amongst the other nations. It was not only their relationship with the Creator, but it also was the laws and the prohibitions and all the things that God had put in place to set them apart, that caused them to be a peculiar people. And so God gave them divine instructions. And of course, there were people that would not listen. And so they went out when they should not have, to go gather when there was nothing left. And then what also happened, supernaturally speaking, is that, remember, he said not to keep it up into the morning every single day, right? 1 through 6, don't keep it until the morning. But on the 7th day, when they gathered on the 6th, God allowed it to supernaturally be sustained. So on the 7th day, the thing that was gathered on the 6th for the 7th was preserved, so that they can have something to eat on the 7th. So you can't be greedy and decide to eat both your omers. Then you're going to be without, because they were literally the distribution was happening according to the households, and they were given 1 omer per person, and double the omer on the 6th day, so that they can have something for on the 7th day. But if the people they decided to be greedy and eat both, they decided to, in hopes that there would be some more on the 7th day for them to gather. Again, they were found wanting. They were found violating the 7th day Sabbath and the instructions in regards to it. How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? Let's continue.
See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place, let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. And the house of Israel called the name thereof manna, and it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And Moses said, This is the thing which the Lord commandeth. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moses said unto Aaron, Take a pot, and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord to be kept for your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years, until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is the 10th part of an ephah.
Okay. So, yeah. So, again, God rebuked them. God told them that the 7th day is for them to rest. It's not for them to gather. He supplied the need for the 7th day. So there was no need for them to go gather because the need was already met. It was already provided on the 6th day. They received double. All right. Double provision so that they did not have to go and do that. So what's interesting is that God said that he wanted them to preserve the manna as a memorial. And so remember, they had the manna, come. They couldn't keep it in the morning. If they did, it got rotten, it stunk, and all these worms came out of it. God supernaturally kept some manna that Aaron laid up before the testament to be kept as a reminder. So that within itself, again, is a miracle. They were literally walking around with this miracle manna for all the time, for the rest of the time. It was to be kept. It was preserved. That they were to keep it for their generations. I really want you to understand. So they were literally, literally carrying with them the miracle. And not only were they carrying with them the miracle of the manna as a testimony, as a testament to what God did, which was feed them as Jehovah Jireh, their provider. But it also says that the children of Israel did eat manna for 40 years. 40 years they ate of it. Now, as it was described as something tasty, like wafers made with honey. So it tasted good. I don't think they ever got tired of eating it, like a bread-like substance. But they ate it for 40 years. They did eat until they came into the borders of the land of Canaan. I have a question though. I wonder, because again, we know, for those that have read this account, that not everybody crossed over into Canaan. So do you think that God continued to feed them manna? No, I don't believe so. But we'll see as we continue on. My answer is no, but we will definitely read on and see what would happen. And again, it describes in verse 36, now an omer is the 10th part of an ephod. All right, or ephod, or ephah, or ephah. All right, and that's what that is. So that pretty much concludes chapter 16 of the book of Exodus. There's so much to glean from this. So much. Again, talking about the grumbling of no food, right, from 1 through 3. Again, a month after leaving Egypt on the 15th day. Now, when they got to the second month on the 15th day, that made a month after they have left Egypt, and they began to complain that there wasn't any food. Remember, the prior chapter was they were complaining because there was nothing to drink. And then the next chapter, they began to complain in chapter 16 that there was no food. And then God began to provide for them the meat as well as the bread. So the bread is coming from heaven. Again, it is a miracle within itself. God caused the quail, to basically an infestation of quail to happen so that they can have the right amount of meat per household. So God did his thing, providing, caring for them, despite of them. God did it, but he didn't do it without giving them some type of restriction, because they had to be tested. They had to be proven. He told them to gather it, but don't gather too much, only enough for what it is that you're supposed to receive, and don't keep it overnight or it will spoil. All right, they were giving that. And then, of course, they would receive double on the sixth day, and that which they've gathered, that extra piece, will not spoil because it will be preserved for the seventh day. And so that is pretty interesting. And again, the memorial jar of manna that they carried that did not spoil the whole time. That was the miracle that they had always with them. Again, it should have been a reminder to them of what God can do in terms of him being a provider. What type of memorial do you have? That is the question. What is something that you can look back on, or what is something that has been imprinted upon your heart or your mind, or something tangible that you've kept as a representation of what God has done? Just think about that. And anytime you get yourself in a pickle, or anytime you find yourself wanting, or anytime you find yourself in the waiting room, you're waiting on God to show up, you're waiting on God to do what he can only do, right? Something you can't do for yourself. You're in need of a miracle. What is your go-to memory? What is your go-to memorial, or something that you set apart for you to remember what God has done? What is your go-to? That is my question. So it is interesting because someone can look at this in terms of application and say, you know what, people have their perception of how God was in this dispensation of time versus our current dispensation of time. And from what I read, from what I glean from the text, God was extremely patient with them. Okay. Extremely patient. Again, understanding where their mindset is at, understanding where they are, emotionally, understanding what they had been through up until this moment, a lot of trauma. And so God was patient with them, and he literally hand fed them, because he knew that it would be a transition. And he also made it plain to Moses that they're going to have to be proven, they're going to have to be tested to see whether they're going to listen or not. And then they also proved God's point that some of them would not be able to listen. They would not be able to adhere. So it's just interesting how when you read the Old Testament, they have this whole, nuance when it comes to their feelings about God. They say that he's an angry God, or he's a short-tempered God, and all this stuff in the Old Testament. But here we see him being long-suffering. It's amazing. And here's the thing. It's like, it needs to be understood, even as a parent-child relationship. If you tell your child way before not to do X, Y, and Z, and your child still, he decides or she decides to do it anyway, if you don't set the order, if you choose to do nothing, if you don't provide a consequence, if you don't let them know there'll be repercussions before, consequences before, then okay, that's on you, because you did not give them all of what they needed in terms of information to say, hey, if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. But God has always clearly outlined, if you do this, there's a consequence for that. You shouldn't do this, because if you do that, this, that, and the third, right? So when our children, our natural children, push the envelope, when they decide to disobey, when they decide to habitually step over lines, what are you going to do? If you choose to ignore it, if you choose not to address it, then guess what? They're going to continue to step over lines. They're going to continue to disregard you, because they're not going to take you seriously. So at some point, the children of Israel has to be chastised too, because that's a part of our training. That's a part of our grooming. That's a part of our process, because it teaches us consequences. It teaches us that you stay within these parameters and you're going to be safe. And if you step outside of those parameters, then harm will come to you. They had to be taught, but in love, not like they were in Egypt, where they were forced into bondage. God gave them free will. And if they really loved him, they would freely serve him. He shouldn't have to force them into it. or scare them into it, that they have to be willing to do it. So God literally was trying to reprogram and teach them that this love relationship that I'm trying to establish with you, you have to be willing to participate. Just like I have to keep my end, which is to provide for you, to protect you, right? And to communicate with you, and you communicate with me. That's the type of relationship that I want. I have to keep my end of the bargain, but you too have to keep your end of it too. That's what covenants are about. It's an agreement, and they agreed. They agreed when they got the first set of instructions at the Mount. They agreed to the rules, which they end up breaking. So it's just interesting that, again, this is going to be one of many, you know, examples of how Israel, dealt with things in the wilderness, and how there was a essentially they really did not trust the process. And I think a lot of us, if we're honest, we can relate to that. A lot of us, this is my application, a lot of us were having trouble trusting the process. A lot of us. Absolutely. Just trusting the process. Um, and I think that's a lot that we can take from this, that we have to learn to trust the process. You know what I'm saying? We really, truly do. And so that's it. That is it. That is it. I just want to share with you these things. The Bible study. It's important that we study, because the more we study about God, the more that we'll come to learn, and understand, his personality, faithfulness. We'll come to understand his heart, his why. We'll come to understand these things. And, it just breaks my heart, because oftentimes we don't take the time to understand. And, we just assume. And I can only imagine that has to be very heartbreaking for God, because we're not taking this seriously. Um, yeah, there's so much to glean from this chapter, but the people did not. They had to grow into their faith and trust with God. They had to grow into that, and God had to make space for that. That God was very aware of the fact that they had to grow into trusting him, and that they went through a lot. You know what I mean? They went through a lot. So that's pretty much it. This concludes chapter 16. It really truly does. And I just want to say, listen, thank you so much for just supporting us the way that you do, and shout out to each and every one of you. We are still in the midst of our revival. And so we have 4 more days. Amen. And join us at the 9 a.m. hour, Eastern Standard Time, for day 25. Amen. And please touch and agree with us that the Lord will continue to have his way in our midst. All right. So that pretty much concludes our broadcast on today. This is STM's Bible study on Exodus chapter 16. And we're praying for you, and we're out. Okay, God bless.